service to Uganda, end it well, restore this country on the democratic path, fight this corruption that is. Now you're asking me about that Dunia
and your involvement in politics.
I don't want to talk about that. This is just pettiness. I want to talk about the big issues. I am a senior leader in the United Nations. I know the rules that I got that govern me. I don't need to discuss that here.
Well, we'll take a very short break, and when we return, in the fight against HIV/AIDS was hit by a huge blow when President Donald Trump announced a raft of aid cuts affecting the HIV/AIDS programs. How deep is the crisis that the world is confronted with, and particularly Uganda?
It is a serious disruption, the biggest ever since the global response to HIV. We see many health workers, very experienced health workers, were laid off, clinics shut, prevention was halted in many parts of the world, and we are seeing new infections rising. If I can give you an example, at the last count last year we had 3,500 people in the whole world infected every day. Newly infected in the whole world was 3,500. Today we are estimating that it's gone up to 5,800 every day, still rising. And we see also deaths increasing, but we're not sure about the numbers yet. We are still counting. So we see that this dramatic removal of funding by the US government is having serious impacts, especially here in the low-income countries of Africa that we are mostly dependent. I'm just coming from South Africa, where actually South Africa is less dependent than the rest of the sub-Saharan African countries. It pays for almost 80% of its own response. It was being supported by about 17%. But even there, I see challenges as the government tries to fill the gap. So what is positive is that across the continent of Africa, where we have the concentration of this disease, governments are doing their best to fill this gap. But it was sudden. So filling it, one means reprioritizing, taking money from other things to come and pay for prevention, testing, treating, labs, all the things that have to be paid for. We see real efforts even here in Uganda. But we also see that the people who suffer themselves, people living with HIV and communities, are also fighting, are also trying to do their best to continue supporting each other. We need more collaboration across government and the communities themselves in order to move quickly out of the hole that has been created.
At the onset of this crisis, there is a big issue raised about they can sell them to the rich, something to that effect.
No, there was some panic in some countries where we started seeing people, actually even health workers themselves, stealing, because most of this treatment is free. Most governments are buying for themselves or are being offered were being offered by them. So, but they give to the public for free. Nobody should be paying for HIV treatment or even prevention in this country or in other low-income countries. But we started seeing it appearing on the market because people were in a panic thinking it's going to stop. They won't get their prescriptions in coming months. This, we've been monitoring and
There's
seeing
hoarding.
that. Not, yes, you could say hoarding. Some people diverting it from the clinics and going out to sell it when they shouldn't be selling it. So it's more than hoarding. It is diversion, it is stealing, and then selling. But that is not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is now how to put back services when many, many health workers who are being paid directly by this American money have been laid off. Organizations contracted to deliver services, contracts were stopped and they went home, closed. So it's about how to restore services, particularly prevention, particularly for certain groups of people who are normally afraid of coming forward in a public health unit to get what they need.
Yeah, but in your evaluation, is Uganda making adequate response towards?
Trying, they're trying. In Uganda, we saw, for example, that the government, first of all, I have to praise the Committee on HIV and Health in Parliament, because they raised the issue, they brought it before the government, and the government responded by committing to reallocate resources to fill some of the gap. So that's, many countries have been doing that, finding ways to reallocate. And this is hard. It's very hard at this time when many countries, the interest on debt has gone up and their debt servicing is crowding out expenditures on health and education. When many countries are facing climate impacts, droughts, floods, mudslides, and all of that, taking away resources to support people in disasters. So you have countries fiscally challenged but looking for ways to fill gaps. And these are big gaps. A country like Uganda was getting something close to about $350 million, I can't remember it off my head, every year for this, for keeping people alive and helping people to prevent themselves from getting HIV. So it's a lot of money, but you see real efforts Africa is trying. But also you have to understand, this aid money, we always knew it would go, right? We always knew that when your neighbor is helping you, that help one day will stop. It just happens to have stopped suddenly from one country, and even others have been cutting. Once it happens, you do the analysis, you see the gap you have, and you just brace yourself and you start solving the problem for yourself. That's what I'm seeing Africa doing. But there are things Africans need to do together if we are going to end this disease. One, we must produce our medicines here ourselves. And on that one, I give credit to President Museveni. He saw that before others. He helped to start here an industry to make ARVs. We're among the first ones to do that. So, but now, with that factory sitting there, it doesn't produce to its capacity. In fact, it went to start producing other medicines because on this disease, you cannot make a factory to produce just for 1.3 million people in Uganda who are HIV positive. You need a bigger market. So the integration of the African market, the harmonization of standards in health, these have to happen very quickly so that we can produce for ourselves and win ourselves medicines coming from India. India makes the money from our diseases, as well as the Americans who own the patents, who discovered the drugs. Today, as I'm talking, it was on the news today, a new drug has come out. It's called lenacapavir. It's an injection that is given twice a year, once every 6 months. If you take that injection, you will not get infected. The most infected people in our country here and across Africa are girls, young girls, and young women. These are infected because They do not control sex. If they have sex with a man, a boy, they may not be able to insist on a condom, safe sex. Or they may not even insist on, I don't want sex. So they are the most infected. But they do not have any way to protect themselves. But this injection is a solution for them. They can get this injection and be sure that whatever happens, some of the most infected are the sex workers. A sex worker may sleep with 8 men in a day. If she's infected, she's spreading. To keep her safe, this injection would be the best solution. She gets her injection every 6 months, whatever she's doing, she's not transmitting. So we need it here. But you know what? The company which has made it is Gilead, an American company. They got licensed yesterday. That's why it's news today. And they are going to sell it at $28,000 per person per year. 28,000. Out of reach for us. Exactly. But if they licensed companies like ours here, like some in South Africa, like more in India, wherever, this price could come down quickly because we would be making the generic type. The researchers tell us that this drug, lenacapavir, could cost $25 per person per year. That's affordable. That one we can afford for certain groups of people who are most at risk and who fear or who have difficulty in protecting themselves in other ways with a condom or whatever. We could buy it, but the company is going to keep that price there, sell in America, sell in Europe, while our people are being infected. So some of the things we need to do in Africa is build our capacity for research, make our own medicines, and treat our own people. We can't have the diseases and others make the profits on us. We would make jobs for our people. So those are some of the things we need to do to collaborate and push. And these other ones which are on the market already, we can make, like our factory can make, but it doesn't have a market.
Well, Honorable, as we wrap this broadcast, I want to take you back to politics. There is an apparent crisis.
There is. In Uganda, yes.
Yes, as the country heads to the 2026 polls. Would you advise anyone to contest against President Museveni under the current arrangement?
You know, as we close the program, I want to speak more. We need to get our politicians to address, even in this really messed up election. I've talked about the need to focus on our young people and jobs for them, how to drive this economy in ways that create jobs, not growth that is going to be captured. In oil and gas, yes, but how is that oil going to be utilized? Where will it be invested, in which sectors? We need to get our young people skilled. I don't believe that we have an education system, a vocational education system that is equipping them with skills for the real areas where there's growth. We need to get, there are areas where our young people could be getting jobs if these politicians were paying attention to them. Green jobs, this is getting people to be, young people to, helping them to invest and learn how to do smart agriculture.
Whose manifesto are you reading?
I'm not reading anyone's manifesto. Getting them into the gig economy, the digital economy. I see other governments deliberately supporting young people to get into that kind of work and earn good living. Web development, content, all these things. Business processing work is now really, I mean, we are latecomers to it, but we can expand in this area because we have skilled young people. They speak English, the global language. They can read and write well. They have got IT skills. All these companies are bringing their work, whether it is front office work or back office work, it's all being done by people in India. Even now Ghana does more than us. Business processing work is going to be able to create many jobs for our young people. I want to hear these politicians talk about solutions for that. I want to hear them talking about how to end this corruption. Look, I'm sorry to say this, but look at Rwanda next door. They have their challenges, but they really address corruption seriously. You need political leadership to address corruption. Political will at the highest level. I'm sorry, I heard the president talking about his envelopes. Those envelopes he's talking about, he said he has a budget for them. That's bribery, I'm sorry. When you give members of parliament an envelope, money, to write a law, to reverse a Supreme Court ruling, and you say that me, I give envelopes to Bayimbi, he gives envelopes to MPs. And where is that money coming from? It's taxpayers' money. It's those poor people's money that he's spending like that. That's wrong. And that's setting the standard for corruption. Because across the system, do you know that corruption is costing our economy $2.5 billion every year? 2.5 billion. And where is it being stolen from? From the services, from the health care of people, from the education of our children. It is being stolen from in the judiciary. Judicial bribes are part of all this corruption. And once you have that corruption, you don't only lose what people get directly from public services, you also depress the interest of investors, local and foreign, in their businesses and in the economy. The cost of business goes up.
You've outlined a litany of things that you would
Yeah,
love
this is, I
any
prefer,
candidate to bring out,
yeah,
to
I
highlight
prefer
to
to
the
talk
masses.
about that than
Are you keen to join a campaign trail of any opposition candidate?
I would be happy to support a candidate who's addressing these issues, has an agenda that is serious, that's concrete for young people, and solutions for corruption.
Why not you?
Ending impunity, strengthening the systems that fight corruption in government and giving them the independence to work. I mean, these things are doable, and I want to hear these candidates address them.
Why not Winnie Byanyima on the ballot? This is the second time I'm asking you this question. Because
Let me tell you, I've told you before that it's a job I could do, but I really want more to talk about how to do it right, how to get into an electoral process that chooses people who people have the trust in. I am less interested in running for office right now. I'm more interested in helping to sort out this political stalemate. They don't get us away from real issues to talk about personal interests. No, let's talk about the real challenges we face. And as I've said, I came to see my husband. This is my personal issue. He's my husband. But I've placed it here on the table as a political issue, because he's not in prison because he stole something. He's not in prison because he owes somebody money. He's in prison because of his political views. He's a political prisoner, and he's a contester, or somebody who was contested at the presidential level, being denied an opportunity to lead his people in this election. So it's a political problem for everybody. It is not just my personal problem, even though it is. So I want to
there are
talk.
voices out there that are vouching for Besigye to be back on the ballot paper.
well, you see, he has a party, and if his party want to choose him, that's okay. I am not here to campaign for him, but I'm here to make the point that his incarceration and also the imprisonment of other political activists is really a violation of their rights, their human rights, but also a political crime.
Would you support
Yeah.
Besigye to return on the ballot paper to challenge President Museveni?
You really like getting personal.
Yes.
Of course, if my husband wants to run, he will come to me first and ask me if he should run. Everybody always asks their family to support them and then goes out to find the support of others. So whenever he steps out to run, you have to assume, and you should assume, that I support him. That's neither here nor there. But the real point is that there are political prisoners in Uganda, that he is the best known of those political prisoners. He's an old man, he's being mistreated, he's being denied bail. It seems that all the rules in the rule books are being broken when it comes to Kizza Besigye, just to deny him, just to keep him out of political contestation. President Museveni, you are better than this. I'm talking to him directly. You're better than this. Treating your political opponent like this is bullying. You can be better than this. You shouldn't fear your position. You should contest equally. And you can have your legacy secure when you have a peaceful transition. You have good things you've done. They should be secured. You've made mistakes. You're human. They can be corrected. But all this can happen peacefully, and the path of criminalizing and bullying and violence against those who don't agree with you, President Museveni, is not going to secure your
You've made
legacy.
this plea on several occasions and it's landed on deaf ears. What more would you do to push for your husband's release?
Well, for my husband's release, this plea is not about my husband's release just, it's about broadly how politics is managed in this country. I was appealing to a more peaceful way in elections, a fair way in elections, and not to criminalize opposition. But if I'm talking about my husband, we are going to continue fighting for him through the law. There is a huge support, unlike what you say, in the legal fraternity, for example. There's a big group of lawyers offering pro bono services, not only lawyers from Uganda, but lawyers from the region, international human rights organizations. There's strong support to fight his case through the courts, because it doesn't only help him by fighting through the courts, it also sets precedents for others to also be released. That's one. Secondly, as I said, it's a political question. It isn't just a legal issue. Besigye is not being accused there for stealing money. It's a political issue. So we are also going to look for political solutions to this. And this is part of it. By being here and calling on President Museveni to find peaceful ways to respect his opposition, to restore Uganda on the democratic path, this is the political solution that we seek. And we're going to keep talking politically and seeking for direct conversations with President Museveni over this question of Besigye's imprisonment and the imprisonment of other political activists.
Are you baffled by the muteness of persons in this country who used to be quite vocal on matters politics, but they have since withdrawn?
No, I'm not surprised, because our politics aren't being managed in a good way. Many people don't want to spend their time working on projects that are not are underachieving, whose outcomes are not good. So many people do their best, express themselves, organize, and after a while they burn out, they are exhausted, they feel this is not productive. That's a reflection of
I thought
the
that's
nature of
betrayal of the
of
struggle.
our politics. No, no, no. I don't think so. I think that people are free to choose how they want to invest themselves. You can't want to, politics and public service is a choice you make, but it is service. It is not. It you are not obliged to run for office. You're not obliged to be a political leader. You have a duty as a citizen to vote and all of that. So many people retreat from being leaders because it's violent, because it's corrupt, because it's unjust, because it has very low outcomes, and they go to contribute elsewhere. They go to their farms, they go to their businesses. That's also service. That's also service, but of a different kind. So this is a reflection of our politics. It's not a reflection on them that they've abandoned anything. No, not at all.
On a number of occasions when Parliament, we look back at your times. I
Yes.
believe you're quite nostalgic about the days where you used to be outspoken in Parliament. How do you compare your Parliament then to the Parliament today?
Well, I leave it to others because I made my contribution with a group of members of parliament who were together. And when we are praised, I obviously I accept humbly the praise. But there is true a deterioration in our politics, and you can see it in the political class, you can see it in the quality of debate in the parliament, you can see it in, I mean, I haven't got over that Mabati stealing, you know, that people could defend themselves and justify taking just a small basic need of the poorest people region in our country, stealing it and going off, and they are all very rich and overpaid. It hurt me. And what hurt me most was that they were justifying it. They were arrogant in their criminal acts. They were not apologetic, humble. No. So you see the level of impunity and of the political class is just shocking. So I want to say that all this can change, you know. I don't like to sit and mourn. I am I'm an optimistic person, that's why
Yeah,
I'm
but
an
you
activist.
portrayed Parliament as a corruption outfit of some sort.
Well, I have,
Mm-hmm.
yes, and it's not only the politicians, even in the civil service, people at the top, the PSs and the secretaries, they are, they treat public resources like they are personal. They just help themselves. And this is where I also go back and I blame the leader. The big issue here is impunity of these big fish. Whenever the government is pushed whenever they take some action on corruption, you will see it's because a donor is insisting. They've stolen some donor money and the donor is saying, I am not going to accept this impunity. I want action. I want to see some heads roll. Then they catch some middle level people or a junior minister who is known, like, what was the other woman's name?
Nandutu.
Nandutu Pwana. They get a Nandutu, they charge them, and then the case drags and drags and drags, and sometimes they eventually get released. So this lack of holding senior people accountable for their corruption has meant that corruption keeps growing. So there's a lack of political will, there's the impunity, and there's of course the disempowerment of institutions that could take action. So these things, if not resolved, I mean, you see that we lose about 25 to 44% of our budget in corruption. Honestly. Yes. These are not my figures. These are actually government figures. When they total up, they find that it's almost 25% of the entire budget. 44, even up to 40% of our total revenues is diverted, is stolen. And so how can we be growing? And I want to tell you this about the impunity. Do you remember the office of the Prime Minister, just the recent, when they stole money for Karamoja, peace initiative? That money they stole was maybe not even up to $2 million. So, no, it was, I think, a bit more than that. Yeah, it was about $1.3 million, let me say, that was stolen. What happened? The donors who had given that money now froze 260 million euros of funding that they were also going to give. You see what it costs us? It costs us the support that we were getting. It takes away our own taxpayers' money and takes away services from. Every time you hear corruption, you should, in the health sector, you know that someone dies without whose life could have been saved. A baby dies or a mother dies because they didn't get what they needed. Every time you hear it's stolen in education, you know that a kid who could have gone to secondary school and got a good education has missed out. So it's real lives affected, but you see the political class very proud of their corruption. When they took money for reversing a Supreme Court decision, they were proud. No, we can be better. We are a country that is, we are great people, we Ugandans. We really are. We are smart, we are well educated, we are well cultured, we are diverse. We have a country with huge natural resources and beauty. And yet, we are so mismanaged. We are so badly managed. And we end up having the most crude leaders with no vision, no capacity, no ambition to improve lives. It's a shame.
There is
but it can be different.
There is a strong argument out there that it could be at his weakest, given his health, long stay, and a number of issues that have dogged his regime. But he's more paranoid. Who do you think can face off with Museveni in this current state?
I'm not going to discuss personalities here, but I also I don't like how you describe him. I think President Museveni is old now. He's tired. He's probably feeling a little insecure because a lot of the people he worked with have left. He hasn't got his comrades he worked with. They have retired or they have abandoned him. And he's surrounded by people on a gravy train. They are not serious political activists. So I think he's a lonely man. And I feel respect for him in many ways for the good things he did, but I feel sad for him because he's in a situation where he's really surrounded very much now by a few people, his family and other people on the gravy train who who know that the only way they got there is to praise him and continue praising and bring nothing to the table, literally. So when you talk about who is he going to contest with, really, I think that's not the real point here. The point is that he will try to ensure
I
that he
think you're being
comes out the
harsh
winner.
describing people as mere hunger zone and people on the gravy train.
But they really are. I mean, if you listen to the speeches of some of these politicians who are always dressed in yellow, what do you hear them say? Do you hear them talk solutions for people? No. You hear them say things about how great their president is, how he must not be opposed. They attack everybody who has a different view. Isn't that just being on a gravy train? Well, how else can I describe them? What are they offering?
Honorable Winnie Byanyima, what a pleasure speaking to you, to your insights about the future of politics as we head into 2026. Well, you are painting a very murky picture, a very hazy picture of the nation.
No. Please don't make me conclude like that. I told you things can be different. I told you some of the solutions to getting young people employed, getting young people to create jobs and work and
So you're
earn.
casting hope.
I told you that corruption can be fought. I told you that the direction of travel should not be one of criminalizing and coercion and force, but that it can be dialogue, it can be reforms that bring back Uganda to democracy. I talked about things, alternatives. I didn't just talk about problems.
What a moment. Thank you very much. That's pretty much what we had for you this morning.